So, last 24 hours of the negotiations, let's zoom out. Going into these negotiations, for the most vulnerable and the poorest countries, there were two really key issues. One was the need for money to pay for the impacts of climate change now. This is often called loss and damage, the money that's already costing poor countries to deal with droughts, to deal with massive storms. The other issue is that in Copenhagen in 2009, there was a push to set the temperature target at 2 degrees Celsius. Government said we would not allow temperatures to increase by anything more than this. This was incredibly contentious at the time because the slogan of island nations was 1.5 to survive. That was their slogan because 2 degrees would mean disappearing beneath the waves. So there's really been an incredible amount of pressure put on these vulnerable nations in these negotiations by dangling the prospect of keeping warming below 1.5 using very, very vague language. They are being asked to give up a huge amount, including the right to sue for compensation for the impacts of climate change. In exchange for this, they've got some vague language and a commitment for some money down the road. And what we know is that desperate countries do desperate things. I mean, look at Greece. But I don't think I've ever seen a situation where countries are being negotiated to accept the terms of their own annihilation. So, going into this negotiations, we knew that governments weren't bringing targets that would add up either to 1.5 or 2 degrees. We knew actually that if you did the math, it brought us to 3 to 4 degrees. But there was still a hope that what this summit could do was send a very, very clear signal to the fossil fuel industry that your days are numbered. And the key part of the text that we were looking at is what's called the long-term goal. There has been a big push for that long-term goal to get to 100% renewable energy and to get entirely off fossil fuels. And there has been a big debate about the timeline of that demand. But there's been another sleight of hand, and that sleight of hand is that now rather than getting off fossil fuels or getting to 100% renewables, it talks about needing greenhouse emission neutrality. Now that is not the same as getting to 100% renewable, or it's really seen as a lifeline to the oil industry and the coal industry that they can continue business as usual, but get big subsidies for carbon capture and storage, and then declare that they are carbon neutral. So because there's a growing climate movement that is demanding that we keep the carbon in the ground, we're going to see very big protests in Paris tomorrow, and I'll be reporting from there.